Hello YouTube and welcome back. I just finished recording my review of the autobiography of Geddy Lee from the band Rush, My Effin' Life, which I really loved. And as I said in that video, it inspired me to go back and listen to all 19 of Rush's studio albums over the last week or so. And I thought what I would do is talk about them all, and I'm going to rank them from worst to best because I like to rank things. It's a lot of fun. This was really, really hard to do because Rush has been super consistent over their 40-year career, and most of their albums are really good, and even the bad ones are still pretty good. So it's very difficult to put them in order, but I did my best. Some of the choices are going to be controversial, probably going to make some people mad. I have some slightly different opinions when it comes to Rush to a lot of people, but I thought it'd be a fun thing to do just for, as a fun little activity. And it's just my opinion, so don't get bent out of shape if my opinion doesn't agree with yours. But this is my ranking of all 19 Rush studio albums. So let's get started. The first one I'm going to talk about, number 19 on the list, is my least favorite Rush album and has always been my least favorite Rush album. It's Hold Your Fire. It's kind of from the mid-'80s, from the end of their 80s period. And I don't have a problem with Rush's 80s period in general. I actually really like a lot of those albums, and we'll talk about them as I get to them. But a lot of people hate them because they sort of moved away from guitar and started using more synthesizers. But I think that a lot of those albums are great. Hold Your Fire I don't think is great. I think the production is wimpy. There's barely any guitar on it. It's barely a rock record. I just don't think the songs are there. I think a lot of the songs are bad or annoying. I really dislike Time Stands Still, which has Amy Mann's voice on it. Hearing a female voice on a Rush song just kind of feels wrong. I think it's the only Rush album ever that has a female voice on it. It's very strange. The song The Mission annoys me. I don't like that song. It just, like, the whole thing doesn't feel like a Rush album, and I've never liked it, never responded to it. There's a couple things on there, like Second Nature or Open Secrets, that are decent songs, but it's just the kind of album that I'm never going to really go back to and want to listen to very often. So I'm going to put Hold Your Fire at number 19 on the list. I have notes here because I can't remember everything about all these albums. Number 18 on the list. Let's move on. The number 18, I'm going to put Vapor Trails. Now, I hadn't listened to Vapor Trails in a long time since I decided to do this list, and I was surprised when I listened to it how disappointing it was. This is the album they released, their first album of the 2000s. It came out after the tragedy struck Neil Peart's family, the drummer and lyricist. He lost both his wife and his daughter in a short order and took a few years off to kind of deal with that tragedy. And this is their comeback album. It famously was very badly produced in the first version of it. It was brick-walled. It was during the loudness wars when everybody wanted to crank all the loudness up as hard as they possibly could, and introduced all this terrible distortion and sounded bad. I've actually never heard that version. I've only heard the remixed version, which is purportedly better. I still think it sounds bad. I still think it sounds like it's mastered too loud. But mostly the songs are not memorable. And I had to do kind of a calculation when putting together this list of, like, what do I prefer? Do I prefer an album with one or two great songs and a bunch of trash songs? Or do I prefer an album where all the songs are sort of fine, but nothing really stands out? And at the end of the day, I decided, like, if there's a song I love, I'm going to go back to that album more, and I can skip the songs I don't like, but if there's no songs I really love or feel strongly about, I'm never going to go back to that album. So I tend to rank those lower, and this is just a forgettable record for me. Apart from Ghostwriter, like, I can't really even remember the names of the songs on it or any of the hooks or any of the choruses. I just found it kind of boring, and I don't like to be bored. And it's just, the songwriting isn't there for me, and I think their mastering and the production on the record just sounds bad. It's too aggressive and too noisy, and everything's right up there in your face, and I just don't like it. So Vapor Trails is number 18. Number 17 is Snakes and Arrows. This is the album they did after Vapor Trails, and it has a similar sound to it. Again, I don't really like the way it sounds. It does have a little bit more nuance and texture to it. There's more acoustic guitar, and I like that. I like Alex Lifeson on the acoustic guitar, which is kind of fun. But, the songs aren't really there for me. I don't think the instrumental included on the album is very good. I like the acoustic instrumental called Hope. I think that one's pretty good. I like Alex on the acoustic guitar is really nice, but I don't know, the songs don't really stick in my mind. I don't remember them that well. So it's not an album that I ever really want to go back to. I remember when this album came out, I was working at the Virgin Megastore in New York City, and this sort of, it's not there anymore, but kind of inspired me to get back into Rush more, but I never really connected with this record. It just didn't do much for me. Okay, number 16. on the list is Roll the Bones. Roll the Bones, coming towards the end of, very end of their 80s period. This is the first album of the 90s that they put together. And they're experimenting with a couple different styles on this record. It was controversial among their fan base. They're kind of doing more of a funk sound in this, and I like funk music, so I'm not opposed to that in theory, but I don't think they're particularly good at the funk sound. It doesn't really mesh with their style to me. And they also did a thing which was very unpopular among their fan base, which was inserted a rap verse into the title track, Roll the Bones, which everybody hates, and I kind of hate it too. There are some good songs on this album. It's not terrible. I really like Dreamline, which is the first track on the record. I like The Big Wheel, which is kind of in the middle of the record. I think those are both good, memorable songs. The chorus to Roll the Bones is fine. I kind of like the chorus to that song, but that rap section in the middle is really cringy. I don't like it at all. And then a bunch of the other songs I don't think are good. Again, the instrumental here I think is really weak. I didn't like it at all. So Roll the Bones is number 16 on my list. Not one of their better records, but got some memorable stuff on it. Okay, next on my list, number 15. This is going to be controversial. A lot of people are going to be mad at me for this one, but I'm putting Clockwork Angels, their last album from 2012, at number 15. Every other list I looked at had this album much higher. A lot of them have it in the top 10. One article I read said that it was number 1, the best album they've ever produced, which is insane to me. I can't imagine how anyone could think that. Because I did consult a lot of other lists before making my own to see what other people were talking about and to see how far out of step with the mainstream I am. And I think I put Clockwork Angels just about lower than everybody else I looked at. I think there's a tendency to want to feel like the band went out on a high note. And, there's good things about this album. It's not a bad album at all. It has a cool concept. I like all the steampunk stuff going on with it. I like the kind of soundscapes and the acoustic guitars and the string section. I think that's really nice. And I think people just want to convince themselves that oh yeah, the Rush ended on a high note. That would be great. And it is a high note compared to the previous couple of albums, compared to Snakes and Arrows and Vapor Trails. It's definitely better than those two records. But it's still, I just can't remember any of the hooks from the record. I can't remember any of the choruses. I think the lyrics are cool, but the melodies aren't there. And I really care about good, strong, memorable, sing-along sort of melodies. And I just don't feel like they're there. I do like The Wreckers is a great track. I like the title track. I like The Garden. I think those are good tracks, but it's just not a record that I want to go back to too often. And this, I forgot to say this about Vapor Trails, but both Vapor Trails, Snakes and Arrows, and this record, you can really hear the aging in Geddy Lee's voice. And his voice is still strong, and he can sing very well at a kind of low register, but he has this tendency to flip up into this falsetto, which I think sounds very weak and very kind of frail and fragile compared to his earlier days. And I really wish he wouldn't use it at all, because when he uses it, it just reminds me how much older he's gotten and how his voice isn't what it used to be. So that's sort of getting in the way. And so, Clockwork Angels is a fine album. I like it, but I don't love it. And I just don't see how anybody could put it in the top 10 Rush albums. There's so many other better albums out there. Speaking of which, now this is going to make people mad too, because I'm putting Test for Echo at number 14, which I'm putting above Clockwork Angels. I think I'm the only one who thinks Test for Echo is better than Clockwork Angels. But I'm going to go to bat for Test for Echo. This is the last album they did before they took their long hiatus, the last album of the 90s. And it's got some good stuff on it. I think the title track is really good. I think the song Drive-In, which was a single, is really, really good. And then I really like the song Virtuality, which a lot of people make fun of because it's got kind of stupid lyrics about the internet and connecting through electronic mediums and modems and stuff. I can understand why people don't think that's good, but it's got a great chorus. The chorus is really catchy, and it's really kind of inspiring and cool. And I think those 3 songs are excellent. I would go back to listen to those songs quite a bit. The rest of the record is fine, but it's not consistent all the way through, but those 3 songs are good enough that I think I would go back to it more often than I would go to Clockwork Angels. I will say, however, that the song Dog Years, I think, is one of the worst things they've ever done. And I really make fun of that song because the lyrics are super goofy, and I just don't think the song is that good. But Test for Echo does have some merits, and I think it's better than people give it credit for. Okay, number 13, the band's debut, Rush. This is the only album without Neil Peart on the drums. This was their original drummer, John Rutsey, and Neil Peart was also not writing lyrics for them, so they were writing, Lee and Lifeson were writing their own lyrics, which they didn't do very often later in life. Occasionally they did it on a few albums, but not very much. And it's a great record. It's not as good as all the later Rush records, but I really think the first Rush album is fun to listen to. It's a good hard rock record. It sounds a lot like Led Zeppelin. Geddy Lee's voice is up in the stratosphere. He's kind of doing his Robert Plant impression, and it rocks, particularly the single Working Man and Finding My Way. There's like great riffs, great hard rock, kind of 60s style hard rock, or very early 70s style hard rock. It came out in 74, so a little bit behind the curve. But I think it's a fun album, even if it doesn't have the kind of trademark complexity, progness of later Rush albums. It's a good hard rock album, and I like it. At number 12, I'm putting Presto. Now, Presto was really hard for me to rank. This is one of the records I bought when I worked at the Virgin Megastore in about 2008, I guess I bought it. And it was kind of my introduction to Rush's more middle period, or I guess you could say late period. This came out in 1989. And I have very mixed feelings about this album. I remember really liking it when I first listened to it, and I'm thinking it was better than everyone said it was. And I still think it has some really great songs on it. I really love Chain Lightning, I think is great. I really like Available Light, I think is a really cool song. And in particular, I really like the song The Pass. The Pass is one of my probably top 10 favorite Rush songs, maybe top 5 favorite Rush songs. It's a really emotionally moving, touching song about teen suicide. It's heartbreaking, and I think it's one of the best things they ever did. So I really like that stuff on that record. This is also the record where they kind of started to move away from keyboards quite so much. It was the record that came after Hold Your Fire, and Alex Lifeson was complaining that they don't, use his guitar the way they used to, and everything is just electronic and stiff. And so they started to do more guitar-heavy songs in this, and I think that's a move in the right direction. But it's got some real stinkers on it. In particular, Hand Over Fist, I think, is very bad. So this is one of those albums where it's like, do I rank it higher because it's got songs I absolutely love on it, or do I rank it lower because it's got really bad songs on it? I ended up ranking it a little bit higher than I think most people would, because I would go back and listen to it because I want to hear those songs I love. Whereas songs that are albums like Vapor Trails or Snakes and Arrows, they're just kind of blah all the way through. I'm not going to go back and listen to those. So I'm putting Presto at number 12, and you guys can just deal with it. Okay, number 11, Fly By Night, the band's second album. The first album with Neil Peart on drums and lyrics. This is when the band started to sound a little bit more like Rush. They started to do more complex time signatures. The song Anthem is in 7/8, for example. The song Anthem is a banger. It's great. Bytor and the Snow Dogs like hints at some of their later prog leanings. And the title track is a fun little, pop single. I really like it. And then the song In the End, I've always had the song In the End is one of my favorites. I think that kind of vocal melody is really gorgeous, and it's a slower song, but I really, really like it. Fly By Night is not as consistent or as high quality as some of their later work, but it shows the direction they're going to. It shows a young band, energetic, excited, trying to improve with every record, and I really appreciate that. I think it's a good album. Number 10 is the album that came directly after it, released in the same year, 1975. Is Caress of Steel. And Caress of Steel is the album that almost destroyed the band because they kept releasing these crazy prog epics and they were not selling, and the record company wasn't happy, and they wanted them to do more commercial material. So they did a tour for this record called the Down the Tubes Tour because they thought it might be it for them. I think it's an uneven record, but I think it's got great stuff on it, and again, it hints at the greatness that they would achieve later. Bastille Day, the opening track, is really good hard rock. I really love that song. The song I think I'm Going Bald, a lot of fans make fun of, and it is kind of goofy, but I think it's actually a lot better song than people give it credit for. It's really nice. And then The Necromancer is awesome. That's one of their first kind of like 10-minute epics. Really, really great. Necromancer, kind of inspired by Lord of the Rings style fantasy stuff. And then they have their side 2, Fountain of Lamneth, long suite, which sort of points at 2112 for what they would achieve later. Fountain of Lamneth is a little too experimental and doesn't quite succeed a lot of the time, but there are moments in it that are gorgeous and really, really beautiful. And so I like this record. I think it's a step forward from Fly By Night. These two were very, very close to me. I could flip them maybe in the order, but I think they're very close in quality. But I like how this is a little bit more adventurous and pushing towards new realms. And again, you hear that young band hungry to try to do something great. I think that's awesome. So I like Caress of Steel. For number 9, I'm going to give it to Counterparts. This is the record that came after Roll the Bones, a second record of the 90s. And here they really stripped back the synthesizers completely and just kind of went back to their power trio roots and did a rock album, and it rocks really hard. I think it's great. It's definitely my favorite of the kind of late period Rush records. And it's got lots of good songs on it. Animate is the opening track, is really good. There's a song called Nobody's Hero, which is really beautiful. There's a song called Cold Fire. These are sort of a little bit more personal, emotional songs from Neil Peart, as opposed to like the fantasy epics of the past and stuff. He's kind of getting into these personal, love song issues and stuff. These are great songs. I also think the instrumental on this album is maybe their best instrumental apart from YYZ. It's really cool instrumental. I really like it. Leave That Thing Alone, it's called. So this is like a good, you get tired of that kind of 80s synth poppy stuff. You want to hear a real rock album from Rush. This is a great one. Counterparts at number 9. Number 8, Grace Under Pressure. Grace Under Pressure is peak kind of 80s Rush. This is when they were influenced by reggae and new wave and the Police and bands like that. I like reggae, I like new wave, I like the Police. I like those kind of bands. So I enjoy this record. It's got a lot of kind of totalitarian themes, communist themes. Like there's some of the songs were inspired by the concentration camp experiences that Geddy Lee's parents had when they were younger during the Second World War. But it's got a lot of great songs on it. Red Sector A, I'm forgetting the name, The Distant Early Warning. That song is great. I really love The Enemy Within. It's kind of a fast, high, up-tempo reggae type song. I really like it. I think it's an underrated song from them. And then there's a couple of duds for me towards the end of the album. Red Lenses and Kid Gloves I could do without. But, I think it's a pretty great record, and I like that kind of style. A lot of people had a problem with the keyboard heavy style. I don't mind a little bit of electronics and a little bit of keyboards as long as you still feel like a rock album, and this does. So Grace Under Pressure is my number 8. Number 7, this one I struggled to decide where to put it because I think it's much better than everyone else does. A lot of people put this at the bottom of their list, but to me it's a great album. It's Power Windows, the album that came right after Grace Under Pressure. And this is a record that I play very frequently. I kind of rediscovered it a few years ago, and I haven't stopped playing it since because I think it's really good. This is where I think kind of Geddy Lee's songwriting in terms of melodies really comes to a head. The melodies of these songs are so good. I really love Grand Designs with its kind of shimmering arpeggiated synthesizers. I think it's a cool, super high energy, fun song. That's a good song to go running to. Really love it. And then Marathon, speaking of running, Marathon is a wonderful song. The chorus to Marathon is one of my favorite choruses Rush ever had. It's so inspiring and hopeful, and it has that key change towards the end where it goes up a step, and it's just great. So I really think this is and then you have Middletown Dreams, which is like a sequel to Subdivisions, and again, kind of speaking to young person's suburban anxiety. I think it's great. I love this record. I almost put it higher, but I can't really justify putting it higher given how great all the other albums on the list are. But I would say if you are a skeptic of 80s Rush and you think they kind of sold out in that period, I would encourage you to go back and listen to Power Windows because it's really great. Number 6 on the list is Signals. Signals is their first album after Moving Pictures. It's got one of their best tracks they ever recorded as the opener, Subdivisions. I think it's an incredible song. I really love it. I also really love Losing It. And again, this is sort of, Losing It's a very emotional, beautiful song about, getting old and not being able to do what you used to be able to do. Great. And it's got an electric violin, which is very poignant and great. This is another album where they kind of were starting to be more influenced by new wave and reggae, and I think it sounds cool. I also really like Digital Man, rather. I was going to say there's Analog Kid and Digital Man. I like Digital Man a lot. It's a really cool song. Got kind of a reggae middle section in there. Great album. It's a little bit less even for me as some of the others. Some of the tracks, I don't really like New World Man very much, for example. So some of the tracks are not quite as high. I don't really like Countdown that much. But Subdivisions and Losing It are so good, and Digital Man are so good that I have to rank it higher, even though it's not a perfect record. It's got a few things I would change on it. Number 5 is Permanent Waves. This is the record they made right after their kind of prog period where they did Farewell to Kings and Hemispheres, and they wanted to do a little bit shorter songs, a little bit more commercial, a little bit more electronics. They started moving in that direction. Permanent Waves is a lot of people's favorite Rush album or close to their favorite Rush album. It never quite clicked with me as much as with some other people, but it is undeniably really good. And it's got The Spirit of Radio, which is one of their best tracks on it. It's got Free Will, which is really good. It's got Jacob's Ladder, which is an excellent kind of latter-day epic from the band. I really like that song. And then Natural Science, again, another great kind of epic from them. Not quite as good as some of their earlier epics, but still very good. I would argue that this is the first album the band made that wasn't better than the previous album. I think up until this point, and maybe this is a spoiler for the rest of the list, but I think up until this point, every album was an improvement on the last one. And this one's not quite as good as the previous album, although I do really like it and think it has some great stuff on it. Okay, number 4 is 2112. 2112, I thought about putting lower because my memory of it is that the first half is great and the second half is kind of throwaway. That's not really true. Like, the first half is great. This was the first Rush album I ever bought. I was blown away by it. That first suite about this science fiction tale based on Ayn Rand's Anthem is just so wonderful and so powerful and so good. It really kind of catapulted the band to success. Before that, they were struggling with their Down the Tubes tour and Caress of Steel. They weren't doing all that well, but this, like, they found popular success here finally with their 4th album, and they deserved it. It was so good. But the second side is actually pretty good too. Passage to Bangkok is a great song. It's got a killer hook, that kind of guitar riff that's sort of Eastern inspired. Is great, wonderful song. And then I really like Something for Nothing as well. Tears and Lessons, a little bit less good, a little bit weaker, but it's a solid album throughout. And maybe it's nostalgia for me, but the fact that it was my first record and introduced me to them made me put it at number 4 on the list. I really, really love it. Number 3 on the list, the album that came right after 2112, A Farewell to Kings. And this is sort of a transition, I think, for the band in that they moved away from science fiction and towards fantasy a little bit. And it's got so much richer of a sound palette already. There's more acoustic guitars. There's like 12 strings. There's all these bells and chimes that Neil Peart is experimenting with. There's wood blocks. The song Xanadu is a great showcase of a crazy percussion kit that he's put together with like tubular bells and wood blocks and stuff. It's so, so beautiful. It's got more acoustic tracks like Madrigal and the title track Farewell to Kings, Cinderella Man, of course. Closer to the Heart is a fan favorite, wonderful. And then you have the high point of Geddy Lee's crazy, youthful, screaming voice on Cygnus X1, where he does the highest note that he ever hits in the entire Rush discography, leading into the following album. So I really love A Farewell to Kings. It's just great. Number 2 is Moving Pictures. Most people would have Moving Pictures as number 1 on their list, but I have it as number 2. It's a really, really strong album. It's awesome. It's developing kind of the sound they built in Permanent Waves and making it even more tight and polished and a little bit more commercial. It's got their biggest hits, Tom Sawyer and Limelight, on it, which are just incredible songs. All these songs, one of the things that amazes me about Rush is the way that they play in different time signatures, but you can't really tell. Like, it sounds natural. It doesn't sound stilted. You have to actually sit down and analyze the song to realize that it's like in 7 or 5 or something. And they do that all over the place on this record. On Tom Sawyer, on Limelight, everywhere. They're just shifting in and out of time signatures, but it sounds so natural and beautiful. The instrumental YYZ, crazy good. And then, like, I really like the back half of the record. I really love Witch Hunt. I use the lyrics from Witch Hunt all the time to think about my libertarian ideas and stuff. Those who know what's best for us must rise and save us from ourselves. And I think Vital Signs is awesome. A lot of people hate Vital Signs. I think it's great. It's got this kind of, reggae kind of feel again, but I really like it. And then the only track on it that I don't love is the Camera Eye, which I think goes on for too long. And it's good, but it's not great. And that's the only thing that keeps it from being like a perfect album. But it's a fantastic record, and it's number 2 on my list. Number 1, my favorite Rush album of all time, is the 1978 release Hemispheres, where I think they really perfected their kind of concept album form with that first Cygnus X2 Hemispheres suite, which is about the battle between the heart and the mind, the emotions and reason, Apollo and Dionysus, and how those things need to be melded to make a perfect society. I think it's their best one. Unfortunately, they recorded this album in without really regard to what keys the songs were in, and they recorded them in the keys that are basically too high for Geddy Lee to be able to sing. And so it sounds good on the record, but they never really toured these songs very much or played them very much live because it was just too hard to sing in those keys. But it sounds great. And then the second half of the album, I love every track. My favorite Rush track of all time is actually Circumstances, which I think is really does a really cool thing where it's like fast and slow at the same time. The tempo isn't that fast, but the drums and the bass are crazy busy in the background while it's going on. I love that song. And then you got The Trees, which is their kind of allegory for socialism. I love The Trees, beautiful song. And then that closing instrumental, La Via Strangiato, is just fantastic. It kind of quotes from Raymond Scott's Powerhouse and has all these cool sections in it. Very, very beautiful and fantastic. And that's my favorite Rush album, and that's the one I listen to the most. So that is my ranking of all 19 Rush studio albums. I didn't do live albums. I didn't do their feedback EP. I didn't do compilations or anything like that. But that's all I know. So that's my list. Hopefully it didn't anger too many people. I'd love to know what you thought, what your list would be. Please leave your own list in the comments so I can see where I got things wrong. And you can defend Hold Your Fire, or you can defend Clockwork Angels, and we'll see how we get on. But thanks so much for watching. I've been your host, Logan Albright. If you're not a regular on this channel and you just came for the Rush list, I usually do book reviews, so I'll be back every Wednesday with another book review. Be sure to check that out, and if you enjoyed it, please subscribe to the channel, click the bell for notifications, and I'll see you next time. Thanks so much for watching. I've been your host, Logan Albright. Catch you later.